Yo, what's up, peoples? We out here with another episode of Setting Sail. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a long few weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, weekends, and I'm tired. You might hear it in my voice in this podcast, but the show must go on. Setting Sail is back again. I am Ngoriaku Corey Johnson, your host, and it is a cool, dark evening here on the campus of Andrews University here in Berrien Springs, Michigan. And I wanted to get this episode in because this was actually supposed to be part 2 of an episode that happened maybe 5 weeks ago now. I don't even know. It's been a crazy handful of weeks. As you all know, you've been tuning in. Y'all been reaching out. So, but anyway, this is part 2 of, I believe the episode was on the idea of change day. So this is part 2 of that. And we will get back to, there's a, clearly my mind is all over the place. So I'll say this. There's a lot of other things to break down from the past several weeks. We'll get there, but definitely got to finish this part 2 episode first before moving on with that stuff. So you might just remember that in that change day episode, I made a bet. I made a bet with anybody who was listening about who would prefer to do some kind of service or outreach as opposed to sitting in classes. And you know what? In case you don't remember, roll the clip. Let's see it for ourselves. I'm willing to bet. I shouldn't bet, but I'm willing to bet that every single student that participated in Change Day today would prefer to do that for a day than school. I'm willing to bet on that. And I'm confident that the students would say, yeah, I would rather do that. I'm willing to bet that the majority of the students would say they'd rather do this for a week as opposed to go to school. And they know that. Okay. So there's the clip. Always got to keep the receipts. You know how we roll out here. But here are the results. Now, there were about 80 or so different people who responded to the social media posts that I put out there. And of those people, only 6 chose class over actually serving and helping someone. 6. The overwhelming majority, close to 75 people, selected that they would prefer to help and that it would be more meaningful for them individually. But here's some of the responses and some of the things that people said in response to that question. So how about this one? It's more active helping someone and more blessings are received. Interesting. So when you operate outside or for the sake of something outside of yourself, you actually get more. That's counterintuitive because for a lot of people, they feel like they'll get the most for themselves by continuing to focus on themselves. But this response here is tapping into something that few people realize, and I think even fewer people put into practice, the reality that when you think of others, when you focus on others, you're actually bringing more blessings and more benefit your way. Interesting. Next, this one right here. People are more important than class. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's always people over programs, right? And we'll talk more about that specific contrast a little bit later. But how about this? Next response: to take the focus off of me and my education and benefit others without something in return. Whoa. Is there something, because you're talking about a difference here between something that's tangible and intangible, right? When you're working in a class, you're doing homework assignments, you're putting in this effort to get this certain grade, you do get something in return. There's a tangible letter grade or a GPA or even a degree that you get by the end of that educating experience. But is it possible that this
intangible, something that, the fact that you're not getting something in return when you're helping other people, is the value of that. Man, how do I even say it? Is the value of the experience, regardless of the fact of getting something in return or not, is the value of that experience worth more than the experience where you receive something tangible in return? That's deep. I think there's something there. And I think it's actually summed up with the next response. Check this one out. Very simple. It's fulfilling and not boring. Oh, man, how many students I hear all the time talking about how much they don't like these classes, don't like those classes. Well, there's always the opportunity to go out to serve and to do something to be a benefit for someone outside of yourself. Someone says this, I don't know, class do be boring sometimes, and helping people feels more fulfilling. There's a trend here. Hope you're picking up on this. People from all over the world putting their thoughts in on this question. Somebody simply says, because it's stressing to be in a class all day. Well, you ever ask yourself the question, why? Is there a reason that being in class is more stressful than helping someone else for a day or serving someone else for a day? There's something interesting there as well. We're going to touch back on that later in the episode. A few more responses here. My next friend says, it feels better being productive for a cause bigger than yourself. Whoa. Now, the reason I appreciate this response is, think of yourself as a singular unit versus maybe, let's say, 10 people that you have the potential to help. If you're working for only your benefit, your productivity, you can only fill up that level of productivity, right? But if you are experiencing and doing something that's productive for 2 people, even, now you're doubling the amount of productivity and perhaps the positive return emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever it might be from that action. If it's 10 people, you're multiplying the amount of productiveness you can have by that much more, the amount of impact you can have by that much more. So very literally, you are being more productive for something bigger than yourself, and you're having a bigger impact in that sense. Another friend says this, love your neighbor as yourself. Love is the fulfillment of the law. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get technical like that, it's true. And I know that nowadays we have a lot more emphasis on things like self-care, which I don't have a problem with. Trust me. There's a lot of benefit that comes from that. But at the same time, it can't be all you're about. You can't only be about your need and your benefit. And the reality is, if you want to say something in regard to loving other people, and even if you really want to get technical about what it would mean to love yourself, there's going to be some kind of sharing or outward giving aspect that comes with that, because love is not selfish. Love involves sharing. Love involves giving. So again, even if you're talking about loving yourself, that's still going to have to come in relation with something else outside of you. Interesting. Oh, this is a good one here. It depends on what I'm learning, but I favor experiential learning. Now, there's a lot of classes that students have to take in university, high school, whatever, and a lot of them are theoretical. What do I mean by this? Well, most of the complaint of high schoolers is that you go through all these classes, right, and you're never going to use this stuff again. Guess what? You're right. Most of the stuff, a lot of the stuff that you spend so much time studying, staying up late for, doing assignments for, you're never going to look at it again. Man, I think in high school for me, I took enough math, so I only had to take one other math in college, even though I was doing accounting as my focus. I mean, chemistry, it's a miracle I passed that class in high school, but I didn't have to look at any other practical sciences like that on the college level at all. And I haven't thought twice about it since. The only thing I think about in chemistry is how I pretty much failed that class. But There's so many things, so many. I sweat so much to get to fail that class, just to never see or hear anything about it ever again. Okay. So there's a whole lot of theory and stuff that they put on you, right? But experiential learning, what kind of learning are you experiencing in your classes that's practical, something that you can use today, not something that you're learning and can only put into use long into the future, if at all, right? Experiential learning, the things that you take in class that you can put into practice, that's different. That's a game changer. It's a game changer. And last one here, really simple, but I appreciate it. It says, because I love making someone else's day better. We can have good days, but there is something very satisfying of making someone else's day better that actually boosts our spirits too. So, we kind of have an option here. You can try to focus on satisfying yourself, which often ends in regret in some cases, disappointment, stress, anxiety, because you don't know how to do that for yourself, or you may be using methods to do it for yourself that are probably not the best. Or you can look at the need that someone else has and try to do something to make their day better. And the interesting phenomenon is whenever you do this, it boosts you as well. Two for the price of one, right? With less effort, even though in our minds and what a lot of people tell you is that helping someone else costs you more than helping yourself. Don't buy that. don't buy that at all. So there's a whole lot of different things that people put out as their reasons for why they would prefer to serve someone for a day as opposed to being in class for a day. But I think this really makes it evident that we know, like as humans, we know, we have this baseline understanding that life means more and it's more enjoyable when we live for others. Now, society today kind of fights against that. Let me explain. It's very me first, especially in Western culture. It's very individualistic. So you may have the appearance of seeking to help or benefit other people, but it often portrays the help to the exclusion of everybody else. So if you want to support one group, it means that everyone is going to assume that you not only don't support another group, but that you hate the other group. There's these crazy levels of extremes when it comes to picking up on this in society today, and that's an issue. It's like it's almost always me first, or my group first, or my people first, or my lifestyle first at the expense of what everyone else does. Cancel culture is a perfect example of that. And we see that happen every day with people of all different kinds of backgrounds because they disagree with one or two things of someone else's experience. It's interesting. And because of what society is telling us today, I believe that a lot of people end up afraid to actually take a leap and do something that they know is going to benefit someone outside of themselves or outside of their group. I think that's a problem. Let me throw this on you real quick here. So when I was in college, there were a couple dudes came in there, freshman, sophomore, young guys, and apparently they couldn't get enough of school, whether it was the classes, the college experience. I don't know, but I've been graduated and definitely been done and gone, and some people are still there. I remember wondering what was up with some students who were actually in their early 30s, mid 30s, while I was a freshman and sophomore at Southern, trying to figure out why are these people still here. And I'm not talking about people who are pursuing professions like lawyers, doctors, or degrees that require a long time to be in school. We know those things are out there. I'm talking about people just taking random classes here and there, racking up different degrees, if that. But it's like they were continuing to stay in school, but with no plan, with no end in sight. And I'm really not sure why they stayed that long. I don't know if it was because of the college experience or if they actually loved learning different things. Maybe it was they just loved not growing up, or maybe they loved keep getting that deferment on those student loans, because that would have been a pretty penny, right? I'm not sure what it was that motivated them, but I am positive, and I think the tape tells. How you say that? The tape tells the tale. The tale tell. You get what I'm saying, right? The proof is in the pudding. We'll just say that. We saw the poll, and I'm pretty sure if I went around and asked every student right now if you'd prefer staying in college for 12 years with no goal or not, that most people are going to say, let me get my degree and get out of here, right? Now, when you actually think about this and the mentality that you see on university campuses, walk around and see how many people you find excited going to and from classes. I'm not talking about because they're walking and talking with the girl or guy they got a crush on, or because they're joking about something that's funny, or they're sharing memes. I'm talking about excited over the content of the class that they are going to. How many people do you find that have excitement for that as they're going to class? Ooh, I bet that's slim pickings. Right? And so, you don't see people that are very excited or so hyped up to go and do homework. Usually, there are some special ones, I give you that. But more often than not, you're not going to find people excited to go to class, to take notes, to do homework, to do group projects, to deal with interesting teachers. You're not going to find students who are really, like they got to get it right now. You're not going to find that, okay? So here's what I don't get. We know that it's very common for students to walk around with the stank face because of all the stuff they got to do in school, clearly not enjoying it. All right. Clearly. And I don't get how people willingly subject themselves to something they know they have to do over a long period of time that they're not going to enjoy. Wouldn't you want to take a break from that? Wouldn't you want to do something different to kind of break up the monotony, to change it up a little bit, just to put your mind in a better headspace? And it's one thing when you think about just this on the day-to-day, but it's another when you think about students who are in school without even knowing what they want to become or what they want to do tomorrow, much less after graduating. So this is my question. Why do people think that their best option is to continue to stay in school and to put up with all of that continually without enjoying it, without really having a sense of purpose, without having any joy, as opposed to traveling the world and becoming involved in service and mission? Again, underlying, we know, everybody knows that there's something beneficial and exciting about helping other people. Society is just trying to tell us, nah, just focus on yourself and just you do you. So there's a tension there. I'm sure society has a lot to do with it, but maybe there's some kind of influences that students are getting from the schools themselves about what's really important, huh? What's in the name, right? We talked about this already. So I'm not telling you anything new. But I will say this. I don't think I will ever understand why students who know they don't like school are more willing to sit in frustration for years straight, but they won't give mission and service a chance for a moment. I think back on my experience, and when I first left the mission field to come to Andrews, I may have talked about this before, but I came with the intent of doing military chaplaincy. To me, it was a natural fit. Everybody thought I was in the military anyway. my dad, my granddad had both been in the military. I wanted to kind of continue that, but just go a different route with the chaplaincy. But I noticed very quickly the first several weeks of school, I was not enjoying my classes. And eventually I realized it's because I wasn't satisfied with the end goal. There's a lot there. I don't want to get too deep into it now for the sake of this episode, but I will say this. I chose chaplaincy because I figured that the people who needed the most help were soldiers. The people who could use hope more than anyone else were soldiers. That was my reasoning. But although I still believe that is true, I also had a lot of personal reasons why I wanted to do it. There were a lot of benefits that I could see there are a lot of benefits I could see in going that route. If I'm honest with you, I probably had more things I was looking for that I could get out of it as opposed to what I could give from it. And I'm pretty sure that's the reason why I wasn't enjoying my classes. Things flipped and God worked it out so that all of my efforts to go into the military actually were unable to work. It's a crazy story. Again, we'll get there. But the point is, when I switched to youth and young adult ministry and decided that I wanted to ultimately pursue a doctorate in missions, all of a sudden class became fun. I went from hating Greek to, well, I'm not going to say I loved it, but I didn't hate it anymore. It was easier to get through it because I wasn't just looking at the Greek. I wasn't just looking at the experience of that singular moment. I was looking beyond that to what I was going to be able to give from what I was getting. And that changed my mentality and my level of excitement and joy while in the class. It changes it now too. I've never done summer school before, but with the change of my focus to serve other people for life, in my mind is like, hey, let me get school done as quickly as I can, and I'll crunch Hebrew 1 and 2 into 8 weeks in the summer so I can get it done. That's a direct result of me knowing what my goal is and what my purpose is, and channeling that energy and excitement and that drive into my classes now. Total game changer. Knowing where I was going, knowing what the end goal was, and that it was going to be something bigger than me in a more selfless way than I had originally been headed towards, changed everything about my approach going through the day-to-day and in the classes. I'm excited to go because I know where I'm going. How do we move the needle to help people to see that serving others actually makes us the best versions of ourselves? I think about that all the time, especially in the wake of something like Change Day and the responses that we see in social media. A lot of people who responded and know this difference are not necessarily people who have been out as missionaries. A lot of them may just be doing what they can for others in their own respective experiences, and they realize that there's something about that. So I don't know the best answer to that question. But from my context, I know for a fact that sharing the stories about missionaries and about serving others and taking the time to go and serve others and to be missionaries is at least a part of it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that just because you go to serve as a missionary, it's going to make you want to be a missionary forever. But what I am saying is that service and mission can help you find more purpose as a businessman, as a nurse, as an architect, as a pilot, as a teacher, as a musician, as a computer technician, as a mechanic, whatever it is. Because you realize and you get to put into practice the reality that it's not just about you. You get a chance to think of others in the work that you do. That makes it bigger than you, and that makes the joy and the experience that much bigger, for you. You know, life kind of sucks when all you think about is yourself. Think about that. And hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. Like it and share it with someone to help the message get out there. Follow Ngoriakl, the Buff Missionary, Ngoriiakl on YouTube and Instagram, and follow Setting Sail on all your podcast streaming platforms. Help the movement to grow. Doesn't cost you anything to listen, to like, or to share, but you could gain something, and other people around you could gain something by sharing it with them. As always, to exist, it's not enough. We out here to be out here. So until next time, let it do what it do, baby.